You know, we talk a lot about work-life balance, but what if the way we've been thinking about it is just completely missing the point? In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on how one simple phrase is acting like this powerful, invisible filter in the job market, deciding who gets hired and, more importantly, who just walks away. All right, so let's start with what we all think we know. For years, the common wisdom has been pretty simple, right? Work-life balance is a perk. It's a benefit, a little something extra that a company offers to sweeten the deal. You know, it's listed right there next to the free snacks and the foosball table. But what if that idea isn't just a little outdated? What if it's actually dangerously wrong? We're about to challenge that entire assumption. What if I told you there's a single number, just one piece of data that flips this whole idea on its head? A number that proves, for a huge chunk of the workforce, that work-life balance has stopped being a perk altogether. So, what is this game-changing piece of information? Let's get right to the core of it. There it is, 0.2109. Now, I know it doesn't look like much, but trust me, this little number represents a massive shift happening under the surface of the job market. This is the key that's going to unlock this whole puzzle for us. So what in the world is this number? Well, it's a statistical correlation from a recent US study. And it connects people who say, work-life balance is my top priority, with a very specific value system. In a framework called spiral dynamics, this is known as the blue system. Think of people who value order, rules, structure, and stability above everything else. Now, with any statistic, you've got to ask, hey, is this just a random coincidence? But in this case, the answer is a clear no. The strength of this connection, this 0.2109, is way above the threshold for what's considered statistically significant. So in plain English, this isn't a fluke. It's a real, measurable pattern. And this is where you really see the pattern. For this group of people, work-life balance has made a huge leap. It's gone from being just a personal preference, something that would be nice to have, to a hard structural filter. If your job opportunity doesn't pass this one test, it's out. Game over. And here's the really mind-blowing part. Just look at what this priority is beating. For this group, the signal for work-life balance, that big bar on the left, is now way stronger than the signal for more money or even for a financially stable company. Let that sink in. A clear, predictable schedule has become more important than the paycheck itself. Okay, so this creates a massive problem because while the candidate is sending a very clear signal, the meaning gets lost in translation, and that leads to a fundamental conflict, a total clash of codes. Here's the absolute heart of the issue. A job seeker says, I value work-life balance, but what the company hears depends entirely on their own internal operating system. It's like they're speaking two different languages, and the message just gets scrambled. So if a blue candidate talks to a blue company, one that also values rules and order, everything's great. The message is heard loud and clear. They hear we need fixed hours, clear boundaries, and predictable workloads. For them, it's a basic structural requirement. It's non-negotiable, and they're on the same page. But what happens when that same candidate talks to a company driven by achievement and results, what the model calls an orange system? They hear something totally different. To them, work-life balance sounds like a business problem, an efficiency constraint. Their first thought is, okay, how can we work around this to still hit our targets? It becomes a variable to be managed, maybe even something you can negotiate away with a bigger bonus. And then you've got the red system, which is all about power, dominance, and just getting things done. To a manager with this mindset, someone asking for balance is basically showing weakness. It's a boundary they see as optional. Something to be pushed, ignored, or maybe even exploited, just to see how committed you really are. So what happens when these signals get crossed? Well, the consequences aren't just theoretical ideas on a slide. This is where the whole hiring pipeline starts to crack and eventually break down completely. And the fallout is immediate. Candidates who need that structure and predictability, they just drop out of the hiring process the second they sense a mismatch. And the employers are left scratching their heads, saying that candidates have unrealistic expectations. But it's not unrealistic. It's a fundamental clash of values. So hiring takes longer, costs more, and the best fit people just disappear. This observation from Valery Kosenko just nails the irony of the situation. Companies think they're attracting people by advertising work-life balance. But because their definition of balance is so different from the candidates, their offer acceptance rates actually go down. It's a total paradox. And look, this isn't a one-time problem. It's a downward spiral. It all starts with that simple signal misalignment. That leads to the exact talent you need being accidentally filtered out. Then the company gets desperate to fill the role, maybe lowers its standards, and that eventually leads to a chaotic culture and complete system incoherence. So the real trick here isn't just knowing this data exists. It's about using it to reframe the whole problem so you can actually predict and prevent the fallout before it happens. This means we have to stop asking the old question. It's no longer, how can we offer this perk? The new, much more important question is, what part of our system is going to break when this signal becomes a hard, non-negotiable filter for the very people we need to hire? So in the end, having the data, knowing that 0.2109 correlation, it's not enough. The real danger, the real risk, isn't in the data itself. It's in the interpretation. If your company can't decode what work-life balance really means to the people you're trying to hire, then the insight is useless. You're just flying blind. And all of this leaves us with one final critical thought. What happens to organizations, to hiring pipelines, to entire company cultures that aren't prepared for this shift? The moment when, for a huge part of the workforce, balance stops being a nice rhythm and starts being an unbreakable rule.